We're gonna UVTV motherfucker. I'm here to kick spiritual ass and dudes for my people. On God. Neon nigga for feather man, yeah. And today I'm gonna be talking about how fate is like a gate or a portal for a form of spiritual eating. And you can look at that as like food for thought to like make it real simple. And this is a gate. Your spirit goes to eat and to feed to be fulfilled, right? Because your spirit, aka your space, is no shape and form, but it likes to create things. It likes to be in a body. It likes to be in a shape and form and stuff like that. So I'm gonna explain this from like overall perspective, right? Of how you can look at fate overall and how you can create the gate and open this gate up for yourself for that premortal waters or like that inspiration or that enlightenment. You know what I'm saying? Like that life force, that blood flow, like all these thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotion, rush in and things of that nature. So you can put yourself in a more broader perspective slash direction of how you want your life to go for the most part. So, like fate is like a predetermined course of life. Now, something being predetermined and stuff like that, right? It's something that goes beyond just your way of thinking for the most part, right? So then we start getting to that conversation when it comes to like the birth realm or the creation realm or like the spirit realm or things become before it becomes condensed, before it becomes physical. You know what I'm saying? Like things become spiritual, then it goes into like the mind or the metaphysical realm, and then it start getting condensed into like the physical realm and things of that nature, right? So something that's like predetermined or like you know what I'm saying, like that pre-word, that's something that came before you for the most part. So things that came before you, so something that came into existence before it actually came into the physical existence, because there's a lot of things that be that be in existence, aka that's how this feelings and emotions, right? So like you can look at that as like what's a good example? Kind of like mythical creatures and things of that nature, right? Kind of like some dragon, mermaid, something like that, where it's like, okay, that thought and idea is in existence, but it's not a thing that's actually physical in this realm of reality, but that do exist somewhere in the spirit realm for the most part. And you trying to like emanate that like state of being or something that's like supernatural, aka something that comes organically and stuff like that, and you putting yourself in that space, right? It start giving this life blood flow for the most part. You know what I'm saying? You start giving that life from even paying attention to it and actually like soaking inside that emotion and feeling, trying to make it make sense and manifest it in the actual material realm and the actual physical reality of how you look at things for the most part, right? So, right, the minute people start going to something that's like predetermined or kind of like some apocalyptic, like revelation type of convo and stuff like that, or like some type of godly judgment based upon like some damnation because of this, that, and the third. Now, the way y'all look at God and the overall God be like two different things because y'all be looking at God like it's like a deity or like something that like has to be worshipped. And so in like so much shape or form. Like it even coming into that name based upon us using language and stuff like that, you get into lost into that form. When like the overall God don't like being in that state of being, aka it like to not be in one shape and form. It likes to create new thoughts and new ideas of how to go about something for the most part, right? So based upon like something that's like predetermined or something that came before you for the most part, right? We can see from a lighter stage, a lighter perspective and things of that nature, right? Based upon like the overall collective consciousness and things of that nature, right? You can look at things that are like natural or like organic. So you could look at like the grass or the things that happen every day, like when it comes to like the sky, the sun, the moon, the atmosphere and stuff like that. And that's a thing that happens every day is eat, fucking, and sleeping. And the atmosphere always you know what I'm saying? Like the weather forecast always changing, the seasons always changing, the sun and moon being in different pockets and things of that nature in different positions in the sky. And that's not a thing that we can sit there and like control or make it go forwards, go backwards, make it, you know what I'm saying, turn the sky from blue to red and stuff like that. Cause this, then, the third, stopping certain clouds from condensing and stuff like that, certain weather forecasts because of this, then, the third, to like make it like really, really simple for the most part. That's always gonna be like a constant type of thing for the most part. So that lets you know from an overall perspective when we look at like the atmosphere or like the heavens and things of that nature and like trying to or like when motherfuckers sit there and be like, oh, sky's the limit because of this, then the third, right? That's something that came before you. So that's something that's predetermined for the most part. So you ain't God, aka you can't be all possibilities, but God gave you the ability to make possibilities happen, aka you create something for yourself based upon different experiences and different expansions, aka going through different carnations, incarnations, and reincarnations to where you gain enough conscious awareness to have this shape and form right now. And that's what even created us to be human and us being at the conscious level that we now, so we can be beyond like how a motherfucker would look at like an animal or like a bug. We was able to take our animalistic natures, but was able to civilize ourselves to be more expanded than us being like a gorilla or like a lion and stuff like that. Regardless, if you look at it like, oh, well, physically these animals have certain qualities that are stronger than humans, but at the end of the day, that's why we have zoos and shit like that. We can, but we have the ability because we're so, You know what I'm saying? Like we have enough conscious awareness to where we can train that animal, not that animal training us. And that's like irrefutable at that point. It's like irrefutable. Like we can train that animal, we can condition and domesticate that animal, but it's not like they doing that to us. You know what I'm saying? We was able, like, even if you want to talk about cavemen type times and stuff like that, we figured out and learned how to be on the top of the animal kingdom food chain and things of that nature from us being humans. Then um compared to us being taken over by animals and monkeys and gorillas and shit like that. But I'm not even talking about like from a deity type perspective. It's like you can have that inspiration, that breath of life. You can have all possibilities play through you to make things possible. But not everyone can just go to you and you can just look at that as like some type of like ego, like, oh, it can only happen through me and I can create the world in my image because of this, that, and the third. When it's like, nigga, we all sentient. We all have the ability to do that in our own little pocket, our own little way. We ain't gonna do that from like an overall perspective, but we can have our little piece of what that is based upon the expansion contraction and the awareness that, you know what I'm saying? Like we just had like a certain level of life when it comes to like our consciousness and stuff like that that could play out into the physical based upon our spirit going through so many different experiences and things of that nature, right? So it's like one's guiding spirit for the most part, and our godly determination to make these things happen. So we guide ourselves do these different experiences, aka at one point us being like a bug, us being like a tree, us being like a water creature, us being like a land creature, all the way us being a human right now. And then at this point, we're just trying to be something beyond human, or like what motherfuckers be calling superhuman, or like a motherfucker who's like doing like some supernatural ass shit for the most part. So we trying to use the human mind to think beyond thinking like a human for the most part, based on thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions. And then the more you be in that creation type of energy, the more you be trying to be with the natural nature of how things go for the most part, aka being like the atmosphere, being like the sun and moon, being like the celestial bodies and stuff like that, all the way down to astrology, astronomy, and anatomy, and being a walking example of how to be these things from you know what I'm saying? Like us utilizing like our star bodies, our light bodies, us understanding like we're just experiencing a body like utilizing this as a vessel right now and trying to expand out of just beyond a human experience for the most part, because a lot of people are just using human vessels right now, right? But they're not having a human experience. It's just the closest thing when it comes to this realm of reality for like the highest conscious being that's in this like third, like, you know what I'm saying, like in this third dimension, this physical form. You would have to come through a human, but you're not having like a human experience. You're just utilizing a human vessel. You know what I'm saying? Like I hope I'm making sense when I say that, but it's like, yeah, they're just using that vessel at the moment, but they're not thinking only human like. In the more less presented scale, right, of you not getting too caught up in humanity and things of that nature, you putting yourself in this perspective of being one of a kind, the same way how you look at mankind and things of that nature, right? So like to make it go beyond us being men and women right now and mankind, you have to be one of a kind. You have to have your own individual way of how you look at it. And then the more you be in your own guidance spirit, your own guidance space, and you resonate that with your soul, aka your individual space and stuff like that, and you're able to Venn diagram, put yourself in all these different spaces, but still maintain your certain frequency, vibration, and energy, and things of that nature, right? And be a walking example of how you will go about it. The more you're gonna put yourself and open your spirit towards fate, and you open that gate up for yourself, and you start eating that up. And you have to start shitting out your thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions for the most part. You start shitting out your expression. You start shitting out your creations and shit. So you can look at it as like a motherfucker who's like really creative, imaginative, and artistic and stuff like that. Like on some Gucci Mane shit. Like, oh, motherfucker got like 200 goddamn mistakes and stuff like that. And this was just like he was on a run. He constantly pumping out his imagination. He constantly pumping out some type of productivity and creativity. He constantly pumping out some type of artistic merit and stuff like that. So for the most part, from you being in that type of mind, for the most part, right, that's like your spirit trying to create different shapes and forms and expressions and thoughts and ideas based upon your own individual space, and you're trying to create something and cultivate something for yourself based upon your mind. So you just expressing your mind from the inside out, like the yin and yang. So you start doing things from the inside out, not doing things from the outside in. AKA you start internalizing things. Like it's like you, like when you start being too stuck in that mind of caring about what other motherfuckers think, right? And you start internalizing like worldly things or like material things or earthly things outside of yourself, aka people, places, and things, and you start doing that too much, you start being counterproductive. It's gonna start being counterproductive towards your own way of looking at it. You getting caught up in other people's nutsack, like spiritually, like esoterically, like you getting caught up in other people's minds. You getting caught up in other people's ways of how they go about stuff. So what's right for you could be wrong for somebody else, and what's good for you could be bad if someone else was trying to follow your example of how to go about it. You shouldn't even be in that type of state of being of like, oh, you're supposed to look at me like an example of, like, you know what I'm saying, like in like a role model sense and stuff like that. It's either you in my sentiment and the way I think, and you find your people, or you just not, for the most part. Even though there's certain qualities you could probably look at as like inspiring, things of that nature, but you're not trying to be like, you're not trying to appease yourself to strangers. It's just gonna get into a conversation of like you having like validation issues, or like you trying to like take over the world and everyone gotta know how your mind is and stuff like that. When if you just let it happen organically, you let it happen naturally, it won't make you go through this whole rigmarole of trying to constantly feel like you have to prove yourself to strangers and shit. So it's like, yeah, like the more you kind of be in that type of mind, the more you're like giving your power away. You giving your you know what I'm saying? Like you're not trying to make things possible for yourself, and you keep on giving your power away to other people ways of how they will go about it for the most part. So it's like you start taking away your God-given ability. You start taking away controlling your own fate of how you want to go about something. So there's things that go on beyond just your control. But the more you try to be like something beyond you, for the most part. So it's like you have to look at like spirituality like individuality. So the more you in your individual way, your own personal way of how you do it, right? And you want to utilize all possibilities, or like which I like to call God and things of that nature, right? To try to you know what I'm saying, like using these things as like tools, you know what I'm saying? Like you kind of making life like your bitch in some way, shape, or form for the most part. You just utilizing different shapes and forms to get to A, B, C, D. You know what I'm saying? Get from like one starting point to the promised land of where you're trying to go based upon some type of direction or desire that you're trying to fulfill for yourself and stuff like that, right? Like you put yourself more closer to creating something for yourself, and then you get more information, more thoughts and ideas to how to even look at existence in itself. You ain't going to some type of indoctrination, aka some type of book or someone else's way of how they look at that for the most part. So all the way down to like religious motherfuckers and like these different denominations when it comes to like Christianity or like Abraham religions, and like everyone different perspective. You still caught up in that Christian mind for the most part. You still stuck in that religious mind, that Abrahamic God mind. You still stuck in that deity's mind. Like let's say that deity was like something that was like walking on earth, right? And it was like a human at some point. It could be anything for real. Like it could be anything like sentient. And let's say it did a lot of things in his life that people paid attention towards, and they found some type of inspiration or some type of like credence, or you know what I'm saying? It had a lot of like followers behind what the fuck that spirit did, right? So like that's like someone who did some shit like 300 years ago, right? And then we still talking about what they did 300 years later and stuff like that. And then it's gonna get more and more and more diluted as time passes on like what they done did in like different civilizations, different languages, and different transitions of like practices and how people went about what that person did 300 years ago and shit like that, right? So like you could look at that and replace that with like how y'all look at Christianity. So if it was a motherfucker named Christian, right, and Christian created Christianity, aka he created his own reality of how he look at the world, the same way how y'all look at Jesus and things of that nature, right? The more and more you put more credence to like Christian and that Christianity shit, the more and more you just build it on its mind and its concepts and what it done did, regardless if he done passed on and died, you still giving that spirit life. You get what I'm saying? Like you still making it still being uphold in existence. You still making that expansion bigger. You still making that space bigger. You still making that spirit's mind bigger for the most part. You know what I'm saying? You still making that light, that sound, that vibration, that frequency, that information, that direction. You still making like a pathway for it. You still following behind its way of how you go about stuff. So like the more you know how to compartmentalize and have discernment of what resonate with you and what don't resonate with you, and you start creating your own way outside of like something that's outside of yourself that someone else already done created and things of that nature, right? The more, and then you know what I'm saying, like you cultivate and create something yourself, and you like start getting followers, and you start getting attention, and you know what I'm saying, people start giving credence to what you did, and people like you know what I'm saying, it's kind of like if like your grandma died, and then you give credence to your grandma's spirit even though she's not alive in the physical, but you still in remembrance of what she did in her life and what that meant to you and stuff like that, right? If you start putting yourself in a predicament of more and more putting yourself in a perspective where you having your own way of how to go about it, but able to do it in moderation, aka you doing it in service, aka you trying to do it in a godly way, aka you trying to help yourself and others, and you're not just in some fulfill like exaggerated, like you're not doing it for the sake, like you're not doing it in the intentions of some type of ego, like you're just trying to do something to fulfill yourself, not doing something to fulfill the space that you in for the most part, and cultivating something for yourself and things of that nature. The more and more you put yourself in fate, so the things that are already predetermined that's beyond just you, it can go more in your favor because you're not getting too lost into one shape or form of how that could play out. You ain't getting lost to a pocket of time. You're not getting lost into an expectation of how the shit's gonna go. You just like, hey, I want to do this. I'm trying to lead into this direction, and I'm on that journey. I'm not really caring about the destination of where I'm gonna end up for the most part. Because a lot of people, they'll have some type of pre-assumption of how some shit is gonna go, or some expectations or some type of standard of how they think something is, until they actually go through it themselves and go through that journey, and then they end up doing something completely different from the starting point of where they thought they was gonna be based upon the journey they went on, and then they end up going a whole different direction, a whole different destiny, or like a destination or purpose behind like the original purpose of what the fuck they was doing in the first place for the most part. So Yeah, like it's like some divine providence type shit. It's like you have to have that intuition. You need to have that foresight for the most part. You need to burn through the reality of how you look at shit for the most part. You can't get too caught up in like other people's creation. You can't get too caught up in a physical example of what that is. You know what I'm saying? You can't get too caught up in like the external realm. You can't get too caught up in like the monetary gain and something that's like temporary. The more you be in that long lasting type energy, like I'm thinking like beyond just this circumstance and situation that I'm in right now. I see the vision of this like helping me and helping my moms, my family, and my children. You know what I'm saying? Like the more you think like that and you be more like a walking ancestor, the more you actually have access to things that came before you and like your ancestors and those spirits and what came before you and stuff like that and the things you resonate with for the most part in like a spiritual sense. Because a lot of people be conflating into like your physical ancestry, right? When your physical ancestry and your spiritual ancestry can be two different things. It could be someone who it could be it could be like someone who consider like your best friend or some shit like that you met like in elementary school or middle school or high school or college or some shit like that, or like someone you met in life, like you know what I'm saying, like a person who ended up becoming your wife or some shit, or like a relationship that you maintain for like 15, 20 goddamn years or some shit like that, right? And like you feel like they speak to you and they resonate more with your spirit than like your own physical family for the most part. So like yeah, your physical family can play a role into that, like your blood family can play a role into that, or people who like your people, aka people who are like your race or your ethnicity or like your phenotype and things of that nature can play a role into that from like an overall perspective. But at the same time, right? Like you can be a walking ancestor, a walking thought, idea, feeling, emotion of how you want to go about things for the most part. Because you creating your own world. You would even have sentience the way you have right now, being a human based upon your awareness. If you ain't do that for yourself, for the most part, that's how you got birth into existence. So it's the same way, like, bro, like even if you want to make that shit like real physical and things of that nature, right? Where like, okay, your mom and your dad, they fucked and they had you because of this and the third. Okay, but without them having that horny thought and without your mama having that horny thought and feeling and them coming together to make you wouldn't be here. So why do y'all think that don't apply to like existence and life in general for the most part? That's what they did to make sure you came into existence. So you have to look at your own thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions like that. You have to look at all these things like your creations. You just can't get too lost in your like, you know what I'm saying? Like you like you're the observer, not the observations. You're the creator, not your creations. You have to look at that like your creations for the most part. Like any imagination, anything like you self-projecting any thought, feeling, emotion, for the most part, it's kind of like you have to look at these things like you're creating these things. Like you're in that space to make that possible in the first place. And the more and more you put your intention span, aka you add attention to it and you pressurize it and you know what I'm saying, you add some type of value behind what the fuck you talking about and what the fuck you doing, you're gonna bring that into life for the most part, based upon like what you paying attention to and what resonate with you. And the more and more you put yourself in that mind of what the fuck you paying attention to, the more and more you're gonna make an actual reality in some shape or form of what you like to do for the most part. So then it's just start playing into, okay, is this productive for you to do or is this counterproductive for you to do? Is this like does this put you in like a righteous state of being or it puts you in a left field state of being? Is this good for you or is this bad for you? And you start having like discernment of, okay, is this blocking me from my blessings? The way y'all like use that terminology, is this blocking me from my blessings or is this just making things more difficult? So that's when you start to learn, okay, there's certain things I need to sacrifice, aka like to put my blood, sweat, and tears for this thing. There's certain things I have to put to the side, put on the back burner that I can't pay attention to, so I can pay more attention to this. So this goes more and more in my favor of how I want my life to go, how I want my fate to end for the most part. And it's something beyond just me. So it don't even give a it, bro, you gonna start thinking like, man, I don't give a fuck if motherfucking hating. I'm gonna just use that as fuel to gas myself up to make me more inspired so I can keep creating. So I can keep putting myself in a better circumstance of where I want to go and keep expanding my mind of how I look at shit. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, but like, bro, like you ain't gonna be giving a fuck what no bitch ass human gonna say for the most part, or at least a motherfucker who getting stuck into like some physical man-made concept of like of what other motherfuckers created. So that's the actual magic. That's the actual sorcery. You sorting things out by being a source of how to go about something. But you can't do that unless you start creating your own way of how you look at some shit. You start, yes, yeah, like, and then you can just compartmentalize it with other people's ways of how to go about stuff, and then you can find your little lane. You can find your little pocket of where you fit in that space for the most part. So that's kind of like motherfuckers who be like entrepreneurs and like motherfuckers who be like business shark and shit like that, man. They be in the state of being, they be in the state of being like a shark and shit like that. But like different entrepreneurs and different like business people and stuff like that, and these different corporations and stuff like that, you start to find your little pocket of where you fit in this world when it comes to entrepreneurship and like different businesses and stuff like that. And then you know what I'm saying? Like you have a I forgot what they call that shit. Um not black owned businesses. I forgot what the fuck they call that shit. Like lower income businesses or like community businesses and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like motherfuckers who do things from the ground up before they become like big ass CEO enterprises and a whole bunch of funding system by a whole bunch of like people's in the like Jewish motherfuckers, like people like in suits and ties and stuff like that. But like you get what I'm saying? Like the more you do it naturally, you do it more for the people, and you do it more organically, and you didn't try to shortcut it. AKA you probably got bribed or something like that, or you signed some type of like deal to make it so you have a funding system behind what you're doing and stuff like that. If you do it more like the real way, like you do it more like the godly type of way of like what the fuck I'm talking about, the more it's gonna go way more in your favor instead of you trying to like sign your life away to someone else's way of how they like to create shit when it comes to them and their family. Because they're not gonna give a fuck about you, for one. They're not gonna give a fuck about you. They're gonna be thinking about their like inheritance and their family and their nepotism and stuff like that, and like their world and stuff like that. That's why y'all can't be like, that's like when rappers be signing like these trash ass deals and stuff like that. You let them bribe you because they're gonna give you like some like a couple mil or some shit like that, and then it'd be like a fucking fine print or a fucking like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like somehow like they end up like owning your publishing and shit like that. Like you in like a slave deal, and if you don't act a certain way, they're gonna share with you and stuff like that. Like that's how you end up in these type of scenarios and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, fate opens the gate for a form of spiritual eating, and your spirit eats thoughts, ideas, lights, sounds, frequency, vibrations, and stuff like that. It likes to eat these things to be fulfilled because there's no shape and form, but the spirit like to create shapes and forms so it can use these things as tools or vessels to actually be something for the most part. So it's the epitome of turning nothing into something. The more you get lost into that something, aka you get lost into that somebody, aka you get too lost into that one shape and form of how to go about something, the more and more you're gonna make things fatal for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're just gonna put it in like the different realm. So look at that as like the physical realm. AKA you can only experience that. It's gonna deteriorate. It's only gonna be experienced for a certain point in time. Look at that. The same way how you look at the seasons and stuff like that. During fall times, the leaves start to like tear away and deteriorate. We ain't in summertime and shit like that no more. We in that transition stage before we get into winter, before it fully like the tree's fully dead. The tree's fully like lost its life for it. It got drained of all its life force and shit like that. Before it gets spring, it's gonna start to bloom again, and the pollen and all that type shit. You get what I'm saying? Like the birds and the bees and shit like that start pollinating and things like that nature. Like you have to look at that shit the same way. So the more and more you get lost into like other people's fates or other people's ways of how they go about things for the most part, the more and more it's gonna be fatal for you. So it's kind of like the more and more you kind of get lost, the more and more you're gonna put yourself in the state of being of like trying to find yourself, aka like you don't know yourself and knowledge is knowledge. So the more you don't know how to apply the wisdom behind something, aka the more you don't know how to say no to shit because you know shape and form for the most part, and you get lost into some type of standard expectation of how you want your shit to go because of this, then the third, and it get more and more on the percentage scale. You start being like less productive and stuff like that. It's like counterproductive, and it's something that's not good for you. You know what I'm saying? Like you putting too much trash on your esoteric space and shit like that. Okay, look at that as like, man, like you keep on adding like thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions that ain't good for you and shit like that. You have to shit that out. You have to dump that out. You have to get rid of all that. It just start getting like real degenerate. You're not being generative. You're not trying to create some new way of how to look at it. Some like new type of, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, bro, the shit go deep. Like, y'all gotta do this for the sake of y'all spirit for real. But yeah, like you start actually controlling the fate of how you want things to go, and then you start eating better fruit. AKA food for thought, like I was just saying, like you're gonna start eating better fruit. AKA you're gonna have better direction how to go about stuff. You have better ideas. You're gonna have broader ideas. You know what I'm saying? You have a broader imagination and shit like that. You ain't gonna get a monetized version of what the fuck they want you to talk about based upon what they taught you in school and like Walt Disney or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like their version of how they want you to look at it based upon the government and the society that they have structured out how they want you to express that shit. Nah, you free flowing. Nah, like you spiritually free. Nah, I'm spontaneous. Nah, I'm a look at it the way I want to fucking look at that shit. And if you not my sentiment, then get the fuck on somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, bro. And you're not in that self-projection type of energy either, to where it be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how to do that shit in like moderation. Like, you ain't getting too stuck in like some type of like synthetic ego. Like, you want everyone to think how you think. No, it's either you resonate with how I think and you my people, and you have the same type of mind. So like, let's build on this. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's cultivate our own sister culture and our own way of how we look at this shit. Let's find some new minerals. Let's find some new gold. You know what I'm saying? Like some gold mine of how to go about something, not some fucking coal mine and shit like that. This shit don't run down. This shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, this shit all run down. This shit all fucking like. It's bro, like it's bro, that shit crazy. Like esoteric fossil fuel and things of that nature. But like, yeah. So it's like, yeah, fate is a predetermined course of life. Also, one's guiding spirit, like some type of like godly determination. So the more you're able to determine shit, and you have spiritual discernment, and the more you don't get too caught up in other people's ways of how they go about stuff for the most part, and you're able to make up your mind, because that's all you're doing for the most part. You making up your mind. You deciding this is the direction I want to go based upon an accumulation of my attention span, the things I've given a whole bunch of attention to, and making these things have friction, bounce off between each other, and make these things expand, contract, expand, contract, to make it a full world actuality of how I look at these things from an overall perspective, and then I start directing, aka astral projecting, aka self-projecting, where the fuck that shit gonna go for the most part. The more and more you put yourself in a circumstance, you start controlling your fate, and the more you put yourself towards fate and that nature is gonna open a gate for a form of spiritual eating, aka food for thought, aka it's gonna give you some type of divine guidance, aka I done heard through the grapevine some spiritual fruit, some thought, idea, feeling, and emotion that is worthwhile, that's plentiful, that's juicy, that's, you know what I'm saying, like that's more long lasting and shit that you bring into existence for the most part. It's the same way how you eat. It's the same way how you can go to a farmer's market and you go get a fruit, and then it's way more natural from it being picked from that farm compared to if you go to fucking Walmart and they start adding a whole bunch of additives, a whole bunch of preserves to make it preserve and last longer, and it's more GMO. You know what I'm saying? It's more like, oh, it's like there's certain things in it that was created in a lab to make it more long lasting instead of it being natural, and it just die off like real quick and shit like that after like a couple days after you picked it from that tree, off of that bush and things of that nature. You're just doing this all spiritually and esoterically.